All right, thank you so much for joining us again on 4029 News on the Record. We're going to continue our conversation with Libertarian candidate for U.S. Congress District 3, Michael Kalagias. Michael, thank you so much for your service. You did serve in the military for a bit. How do you think Congress initially handled the situation in Russia and Ukraine?
Militarily, there's really not a whole lot we can do about it. It's not our fight. I think Putin kind of put everybody in a hard spot, and Europe kind of put itself in a hard spot. Right now, Europe is highly dependent on the natural gas that Russia has. So Germany passed laws that banned their own coal and nuclear plants. They're shutting them all down by law. And when you do that, they've greatly increased their dependence on gas. And Norway has a lot of gas that they can provide to try and fill some of that need, but it's not enough, which means they've got to get it from Russia, which means that they can't really respond very well to what Putin does, because all he's got to do is cut off their gas and Germany goes to rationing, or the lights go out and the people freeze to death. So they're kind of in a bad spot. They put themselves in a bad spot. It's not really our fight. There's not really a whole lot we can do about it. Any of our bases over there, we'd have to go use some of those European countries that aren't going to be willing to let us use that. Ukraine is having that problem now. They can't get air support or a no-fly zone enforced because the European countries that could provide the infrastructure for that won't do it. They can't. They're kind of strapped over a barrel. So it's kind of there's no one simple solution and no one simple cause of things, but every action has a reaction and has a consequence, and they're kind of suffering the consequences now. The most we can do really is kind of what we're doing with sanctions. The sanctions on gas and oil isn't really going to help. It's just going to drive up the price so that when he gets it from somewhere else, he'll still have just as much money, if not more, to fund his efforts. I think it might not be a bad idea to seize assets that he has here, and then we can take those assets that are seized and use that to provide aid to the Ukrainians as long as they're holding out.
Now, we talked about debt, we talked about inflation, we talked about healthcare. What do you think is the next biggest issue facing the country, and how do we solve that issue?
Some of it's just the loss of liberty. So we've lost a lot of our rights. The government keeps growing in power every year. We saw that a lot with a lot of the mandates, and we weren't getting a lot of information. We didn't have very good data, but there were still plenty of government mandates on what businesses could open and what ones stayed shut and what you had to wear and where you could go, and a lot of things that infringed on our rights. And that's what happens when you get parties that are in power instead of people in power. The country was founded on individual rights and the power of the people. And we can't have power to the people as long as there's power in the parties. And the only way to break that power in parties is to have third parties and independent candidates that start winning elections. We've seen that you can stop stuff that's going on in Congress with just a handful of people when it's closely divided. If we had 3 or 4 or 5 different parties that had candidates in Congress and no party had a majority, there'd have to be a lot more consensus building. And you wouldn't just have one party trying to, beat the other party up every time they get in power, because it's the people that suffer every time they do that. It doesn't matter if the Democrats are in power. It doesn't matter if the Republicans are in power. We've had the same bad government, and the people have always lost. So it's one of the reasons I'm running as a libertarian, is because if we can break that grip on power so that no party at all has power, then maybe we can start fixing some of the bad things they're doing in Washington, D.C.
Now, we want to give you 30 seconds to explain why you are the best candidate.
I'm the best candidate because I care. I'm not part of either major party, so I don't have anybody telling me what I need to do. Nobody's paid me any money to buy my influence or to buy the influence in my party. I have military experience. I have experience running multi-million-dollar corporations. It's something that I have the experience for. I'm neutral when it comes to a lot of things. Mainly, I want to see the government get smaller, more freedom, so the people get the power that they're supposed to have, and our rights are protected. So, and there's no one else running that's doing that. We've got one candidate who's a shill for the Republicans. We've got another one who's got to do whatever the Democratic Party tells her what to do. I'm going to do what's good for the people.
All right, Michael Kalagias, the Libertarian candidate for U.S. House of Representatives, District 3. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.